Welcome back, everyone. Well, all this talk about the pandemic and how it affects all different segments of our population is very serious stuff. One segment of our population are children. The topic always comes up, how do we, number one, protect our children? Number two, how do we protect the setting that our children are exposed to? And then school. This one central location where our children learn, but they also are fed information about themselves. They learn self-confidence. They learn empathy. Sometimes children get their only substantial nutrition through the school system. And all of a sudden, they don't have the social interaction with their teachers or their peers. Joining me today is somebody who is working on a very interesting pilot program that I want you to know about. This is Dr. Daniel Kuhles, who is the Saratoga County Public Health Commissioner. So welcome, Daniel.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're quite welcome. I was kind of struggling with that open, Daniel, because I just think about my own children. I think about my grandchildren and just the effect that this pandemic has had on them when they were trying to adjust to remote learning and it wasn't going particularly well, when they were kind of losing their social skills. We're adults. We see things in a completely different light than our children do and our grandchildren do. You see this every single day. The program that you're piloting is called the Test to Stay program. Can you give us a sense of what this program entails?
Sure. So, Test to Stay is a pilot program that we're working with the South Glens Falls School District. And in short, what it means is that students who are quarantined because of close contact exposure to a COVID case receive a modified quarantine protocol that allows them to attend in-person instruction each school day, so long as they test negative on school days. They'll report to the nurse upon arrival at school, get their test, which takes about 15 minutes, and then report to class like any other day.
Wow, this sounds like a handful. The thought that a school is a safe environment is a question that comes up often. We think when we talk to adults, we're talking, be careful when you go to Hannaford, be careful when you go to a public event, a concert, be careful when you go to the department store. Is a school a safe environment for children?
In New York State, there are multiple layers of mitigation measures that are in place in every school. And through our Test to Stay program, the pilot program, we've been able to document that the risk of transmission from student to student in the school setting is quite low. To date, there have been 256 students who have participated in the program, and 3 of whom have been positive. That's only 1.1%. And upon further review, 2 of the 3 positives did not meet full eligibility criteria. So if you were to remove them from your analysis, that is 1 positive out of 254 kids, or 0.4%. The risk of transmission in the school setting from student to student is very low.
Why do you think that is? We hear, the statistics that we hear, nowhere near the depth of information that you have, is that segment of our population is less vulnerable to either getting this virus or transmitting this virus. Is that true?
Well, we're talking about a wide spectrum here from 5 to 18-year-olds whose physiology is quite different. When you look at a 17, 18-year-old, physiologically and with the virus, they'll behave more like an adult. Where at the other end of the spectrum with a 5-year-old, obviously they behave differently. The risk of transmission, or if they become infected, the risk of serious illness is less. So we're talking about a wide spectrum here in that school setting. And again, there's been 700 for these 250 or so kids, 759 tests and 756 days of in-person instruction saved. As you talked about, the school is a safe setting, and it may be the only place where a child gets a meal. It may be a safe place for them. And when they're not in school, they lose not just educational attainment, but what we've seen the data is that mental health issues, anxiety, social skills, all of those have decreased substantially. So the best place for children is in school.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's not that long ago, Daniel, that Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson Johnson, AstraZeneca were asking for emergency authorization use for the vaccines. Those days are kind of behind us now, and we see that I think the most recent CDC information is that anyone 5 years or older is now eligible to receive a vaccination. Number one, I want to make sure that's correct. And that number two, do you recommend that the children do get vaccinated?
So the indication for 5 and older is right now just limited to Pfizer vaccine. So Moderna and Johnson and Johnson, their applications for authorization are still with FDA. Vaccination is the most effective way to prevent transmission, but more importantly, the vaccines are designed less to prevent transmission and more to prevent severe illness, hospitalization, and death. And when thinking about vaccination, it's a family decision that should be made in consultation with their healthcare provider.
Right. And you would hope that everyone would follow those guidelines. So if for whatever reason they are apt to not want to be vaccinated or to have their children vaccinated, that they consult a professional to help guide them through that decision-making process. That's, I'm sure you would agree with that. I agree with that. And everybody I know agrees with that. Now, what are the results of the program so far?
Well, again, to date, what we've seen here again is very minimal student-to-student transmission, and we're at a point in the pilot where we are very likely to end this phase of the pilot. We have a comprehensive evaluation team that includes the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. It includes parents, it includes educators, and it includes public health officials. And so we will be meeting after the Thanksgiving holiday to review the data. And it is very likely that based on this data, we will be soon offering test to stay to every school district and private school in Saratoga County.
Again, for our viewers, that this is the first in our state, or near first in our state, South Glens Falls, to find out about this test to stay pilot program, make certain that it could be rolled out and scaled for across the state. That sounds like an incredible responsibility, Daniel, and also something that sounds very, very important to me. If I understand you correctly, that what we're trying to say here is that, schools are safe places for our students, number one.
Yes.
And number two, keeping our kids in school for some of the reasons that you mentioned, that are not limited just to educational reasons, that keeping our kids in schools is a very important, and that the transmission of this virus to that population in a school setting is extremely low. Am I correct in saying that?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. I think anybody watching this, those are the three key things that we would want to know. And then, of course, find out more detailed information about the pilot program, about whether or not it could be rolled out into your school district. You're going to see a website at the bottom of the screen. Please go to that website. There's a lot of information there about what Daniel is talking about. I would just say, I would imagine that based on the data you've had, and I think if you told me, I think if I understood you correctly, you said that you've been about 4 weeks into this pilot program?
Correct.
Okay, is that enough time to evaluate, do you think, the data to make recommendations?
Our evaluation team is very confident. It's not just the length here and the number of tests, but this has also been occurring these last several weeks when there has been a significant increase in community transmission. And so that's another reassuring sign that the schools, because it has not translated into transmission in the school setting from student to student, that we can have confidence in this data, and that Test to Stay should be expanded to schools across Saratoga County.
That is probably the most important piece of information. We've seen a spike because of the Delta variant, especially across the adult population, but in our schools, we have not seen that same spike. Boy, hats off to you and everybody you're working with on this program. Everything from keeping our kids safe to making certain that they're in an environment where they can be nurtured and learn is so seriously important. And as we battle our way through this virus and all the variants we know about and the ones we probably don't know about yet, it's very, very important to try to keep the rudder on this, steady and pointing forward. Really, thank you, Daniel, for all the work you're doing on this. Really important stuff.
Thank you for having me, and I'm very thankful to Christine Orr and her team at South Glens Falls School District.
Yeah, I've got it. Okay. All right. Happy holidays to you. Stay safe, and we'll be checking back with you. Okay?
Likewise, have a good Thanksgiving.
Yes.